Have you ever woken in the hush of dawn, your heart heavy with yesterday's fears, wondering if today will pile on more burdens? What if you could transform that moment, trading dread for a bold proclamation that no darkness, no uncertainty, no foe can withstand the blazing light of God's presence? Psalm 27 is that proclamation, a divine call to start each day with unshakable faith, your soul ignited by the truth that the Lord is your light, your salvation, your stronghold. Are you ready to let this ancient song reshape your mornings, your days, your life? Imagine a world spiraling into chaos, where headlines roar of conflict, economies sway like fragile branches, and personal struggles loom like gathering storms. Yet, amid this tempest, a voice rises, clear and strong, urging you to stand firm, to lift your eyes above the crashing waves, to anchor your heart in a fortress no enemy can breach. Psalm 27 is that voice, a beacon of hope declaring that God's presence outshines any trial. His power overcomes any fear. His love outlasts any despair. This psalm is not mere poetry, it is a war cry, a guide to triumph, a reminder that the God who stood with David in the wilderness stands with you in every storm. Can you hear its call, beckoning you to rise above the world's clamor? This is not just a message to hear it, it's a challenge to live. Psalm 27 dares you to make it the cornerstone of your day, the lens through which you view every struggle, the flame that burns away doubt. As we journey through its truths, you will learn to face fear with faith, adversity with courage, loneliness with the certainty of God's presence. By the end, these words will not merely be read, they will be declared resounding through your life, guiding you to a hope that never fades, a strength that never falters, a victory already secured. Will you embrace this challenge and let Psalm 27 redefine how you live? Psalm 27 is a song of triumph, a bold declaration of faith that pierces the shadows of doubt and despair. It proclaims that no matter the trials we face, the Lord is our light, banishing the darkness that threatens to engulf us. He is our salvation, breaking the chains of fear that bind our hearts. He is our stronghold, a fortress unmoved when the world quakes. When you open your eyes each morning, what greets you? The weight of yesterday's worries piling up like storm clouds? Or the mercies of God, fresh and radiant like the dawn painting the sky with hope? The first moments of your day set the course for all that follows. Psalm 27 invites you to begin with trust, not terror, with courage, not confusion, with the unshakable truth that the Lord is your light and your salvation. Whom shall you fear? David, the writer of this psalm, knew the bite of danger. As a young shepherd, he faced lions and bears, his sling steady, his heart resolute. As a fugitive, he fled King Saul's wrath, hiding in cold caves, his life hanging by a thread. As a king, he endured betrayal, rebellion, the weight of a nation's hopes. Yet, through every trial, David's faith in God stood firm. He did not whisper, "I hope the Lord is my salvation," or "Perhaps he is my stronghold." No, he shouted with certainty, "The Lord is my light and my salvation." This is the boldness of faith, the trust that transforms your mornings, your days, your entire life. When you wake, before your feet touch the floor, let these words echo in your heart. Let them be the banner over your day. Instead of rising to worry, rise to worship. Instead of fearing the unknown, proclaim the truth. The Lord is the stronghold of my life, of whom shall I be afraid? Consider Moses, leading Israel through a barren wilderness, pursued by Pharaoh's armies, hemmed in by the Red Sea. Fear could have paralyzed him, but God was his light, parting the waters in a miraculous display of power. God was his salvation, delivering his people from the grip of slavery with a mighty hand. God was his stronghold, guiding them through the desert with a pillar of fire by night and a cloud by day, a visible sign of his presence. Like David, Moses learned that no trial was too great when God was near. What fears grip you as you face the day? The uncertainty of a new challenge that seems too daunting to overcome? The scars of past failures that whisper you're not enough? Psalm 27 resounds across time, declaring that the God who led Moses through the parted sea, who stood with David in the wilderness, is with you. His light scatters doubt like the morning sun burns away the fog. His salvation lifts you above despair, setting your feet on solid ground. His strength surrounds you like a fortress, unyielding and secure. Picture the prophet Samuel, called as a young boy to hear God's voice in the temple, surrounded by uncertainty and the fading leadership of Eli. Fear could have silenced him, but God was his light, revealing his plan. God was his salvation, guiding him to anoint kings. God was his stronghold, sustaining him through years of turmoil. Like David, Samuel trusted in God's presence, and it shaped his life. What uncertainties linger in your heart as dawn breaks? A future you can't predict, a calling you're unsure of? Psalm 27 calls you to trust as Samuel did, to let God's light illuminate your path, His salvation steady your steps, His stronghold protect your soul. Will you step into each day with the confidence that the God who spoke to Samuel speaks to you? Think also of Joshua, stepping into Moses' shoes to lead Israel across the Jordan. Fear could have stopped him, but he sought God's presence, and the river parted, the walls of Jericho fell. God was his light, showing the way. God was his salvation, granting victory. God was his stronghold, giving him courage to conquer. Like David, Joshua's faith turned fear into triumph. What obstacles block your path today? Psalm 27 urges you to trust as Joshua did, to believe God's light will clear your way. Can you march forward with faith when the battle looms large? Consider Ruth, a Moabite widow, choosing to follow Naomi into an uncertain future, leaving her homeland behind. Fear could have held her back, but she trusted in God's provision, declaring, "Your God will be my God." God became her light, leading her to Boaz. God was her salvation, weaving her into the lineage of Christ. God was her stronghold, giving her a future beyond her imagining. Like David, Ruth's faith turned uncertainty into a legacy of hope. What uncertainties weigh on your heart today? Psalm 27 calls you to trust as Ruth did, to believe that the God who guided her will guide you. Can you step into the unknown, trusting His light to lead the way? Think of Esther, a young Jewish woman thrust into the Persian court, facing the threat of genocide against her people. Fear could have silenced her, but she sought God's courage, risking her life to approach the king. God was her light, revealing the path to deliverance. God was her salvation, turning Haman's plot into victory for his people. God was her stronghold, sustaining her in the face of danger. Like David, Esther's faith transformed fear into triumph. What fears threaten to silence you today? Psalm 27 calls you to stand as Esther did, to trust that the God who delivered His people through her will deliver you. Can you step forward in faith even when the stakes are high? Think of Job, a man who lost everything, his wealth, his children, his health, yet refused to curse God. Fear and despair could have broken him, but he clung to his faith, declaring, "I know that my Redeemer lives." God was his light, restoring his hope in the darkest of times. God was his salvation, giving him double for all he had lost. God was his stronghold, sustaining him through unimaginable suffering. Like David, Job's trust in God turned tragedy into testimony. What losses weigh on your heart today? Psalm 27 calls you to trust as Job did, to believe that the God who restored him will restore you. Can you hold fast to faith when everything seems lost? We live in a world that feels like it's unraveling. Headlines blare of wars, crises, division. Economies teeter on the brink, relationships strain under the weight of unmet expectations, and personal struggles press in a sudden loss that leaves you reeling, a daunting decision that keeps you awake at night, a challenge that feels insurmountable. We don't know what the day holds, and that uncertainty can clutch our hearts like a cold grip, threatening to steal our peace. But Psalm 27 anchors us to something greater than the shifting sands of this world. It points to the unshakable foundation of God's presence, His promises, His power. David writes, "The Lord is the stronghold of my life, of whom shall I be afraid?" A stronghold is more than a shelter, it is a fortress. Its walls towering, its gates unbreakable, a refuge no enemy can pierce. In ancient times, cities built strongholds to defy invaders, their stones a symbol of safety. But David's trust was not in stone or steel. He trusted the living God, steady when chaos reigns, sovereign when hope seems lost, faithful when all else fails. Imagine David in the wilderness, the stars above his only light, the howls of danger echoing in the night. His hands tremble as he grips his harp, yet his voice rises in a song of trust, declaring God's protection over his life. The same God who calmed David's fears watches over you. Imagine facing your day with such confidence. While others tremble at the news, their hearts shaken by every alarming headline, you stand firm in faith, rooted in the truth of God's Word. While the world churns with restlessness, chasing fleeting solutions to deep fears, you walk in peace, knowing the Creator holds your future. You don't have to be swayed by headlines, tomorrow's uncertainties, or fears that claw at your heart. You have a stronghold, a fortress that cannot be shaken, the Lord Himself. Before you scroll through the news, before you heed worry's voice, listen to the voice of truth. Declare Psalm 27 over your day. Stand firm in the stability of God's presence. For when He is your stronghold, no storm can topple you, no trouble can break you, no uncertainty can steal your peace. What would it mean to live each day with this unshakable assurance? To walk boldly knowing the Creator is your refuge. What if you began each morning by lifting your eyes to the heavens, declaring that no matter what the day brings, the Lord is your light? What if you faced every challenge with the certainty that the God who parted the Red Sea for Moses, who gave courage to Esther, who stood with David, stands with you? Psalm 27 is not just a song, it is a battle cry for your soul, a reminder that the Creator of the universe fights for you. Can you trust Him to lead you through the storms of today, just as He led His people through the trials of yesterday? Fear is a cunning thief, slipping into our hearts in the stillness of morning, whispering doubts before the day unfolds. It steals joy, shatters peace, paralyzes purpose, urging us to shrink from the life God calls us to live. But Psalm 27 arms us with a mighty weapon, a bold declaration that fear has no power where faith in God stands strong. David proclaimed, "Whom shall I fear? Of whom shall I be afraid?" These are not the words of a man untouched by trouble. David faced real enemies' armies that hunted him, betrayals that cut deep, dangers that could have crushed his spirit. Yet he refused to let fear rule him. Why? Because he knew God's presence was greater than any foe, His power mightier than any threat. Fear distorts our view, turning molehills into mountains, shadows into giants. It whispers, "You'll fail. You're alone. Tomorrow will break you." But faith builds a fortress around your heart, unyielding and strong. When you rise each morning and speak Psalm 27, you choose, "I will not bow to fear today. I will walk in faith. I will trust the Lord, my stronghold, my salvation." Imagine the difference if you gave faith the first word. What if, instead of dreading what might go wrong, you declared God's sovereignty over your day? What if, instead of fleeing the battle, you faced it with the certainty that the Lord fights for you? Psalm 27 shifts your gaze from the size of your fear to the greatness of your God. No enemy, no hardship, no uncertainty can stand against the one who walks beside you. Let faith rise. Let trust in God stand firm, for fear may knock, but in His presence it finds no home. Think of Daniel, cast into a den of lions for his unwavering faith. The darkness of that pit could have swallowed his courage. The roar of the beasts could have drowned his hope. Yet Daniel stood firm, his heart anchored in the God who is light and salvation. And God shut the lions' mouths, lifting Daniel unharmed, his faith a testimony to kings. Like David, Daniel knew fear is powerless when God is near. What fears grip you as you face the day? The unknown future that looms like a storm on the horizon? The sting of rejection that cuts deeper than any sword? Psalm 27 calls you to stand as Daniel did, proclaiming that no darkness can overcome the light of God's presence, no threat can break the strength of His salvation. Will you let fear define your day, or will you let faith in God lead the way? Life is a battlefield, strewn with challenges that test our courage, our resolve, our faith. Some trials strike like lightning, sudden and fiercely, a diagnosis that shakes your world, a loss that leaves you breathless. Others grind us down day by day, relentless in their weight, a strained relationship, a financial burden, a dream that feels out of reach. There are seasons when the world seems arrayed against us, obstacles too high, enemies whispering, "You won't survive." But Psalm 27 was written for those in the fire, for those facing struggles beyond their strength, for those needing a rock when all else crumbles. David writes, "Though an army encamp against me, my heart shall not fear. Though war arise against me, yet I will be confident." What kind of confidence is this? Not fleeting optimism, not self-reliance, but a bold, unshakable trust in the living God. David did not pretend the battle wasn't real. Armies surrounded him, wars raged, dangers pressed close. But he refused to let the battle define him. His trust in God dwarfed his foes. How do you face adversity? When plans unravel, when betrayal stings, when the path seems blocked, do you falter or do you lean into God's presence? Psalm 27 teaches that trust is a choice, a decision to believe that even as the storm rages, God reigns supreme. It is a choice to cling to the truth that no trial is greater than His power. Each morning you choose, will you meet the day with fear or faith? Will adversity drive you from God or draw you closer? Trust is not rooted in what you see, it is rooted in who God is. He is faithful, mighty, the stronghold that never falls. When battle looms, don't retreat. Stand firm. When enemies encircle, don't yield to fear. Lift your eyes to the one who fights for you. For when you trust in the Lord, no adversity can shake you. Picture Elijah alone on Mount Carmel, facing the prophets of Baal, the skies silent, the people wavering. Fear could have silenced him, but he trusted God's power, and fire fell from heaven, proving the Lord's might. Like David, Elijah's confidence was in God, not himself. What battles do you face that seem too great? A broken relationship that feels beyond repair? A looming crisis that threatens to overwhelm? Psalm 27 reminds you that the God who sent fire for Elijah, who stood with David, fights for you. His strength is your shield, His presence your refuge. Consider Deborah, a judge of Israel, leading her people into battle against Sisera's army. Fear could have held her back, but she trusted God's call, and He granted victory through her obedience. Like David, Deborah knew that faith in God turns fear into triumph. Will you trust the God who empowered Deborah to empower you in your battles? Think of Hannah, weeping at the tabernacle, longing for a child, her heart heavy with grief. Doubt could have overwhelmed her, but she prayed, and God granted her Samuel. God was her light, lifting her despair. God was her salvation, answering her cry. God was her stronghold, giving her peace. Like David, Hannah's faith turned sorrow into joy. What prayers weigh on your heart today? Psalm 27 calls you to pray, as Hannah did, To trust God's light will shine on your darkness. Can you hold to hope when tears fall? Think also of Gideon, called to lead Israel against Midian with only 300 men, his heart trembling at the odds. Fear could have paralyzed him, but God was his light, showing him signs of victory. God was his salvation, delivering Israel with a mere shout and broken jars. God was his stronghold, turning weakness into triumph. Like David, Gideon's faith overcame fear, proving God's power in the impossible. What impossible odds do you face today? Psalm 27 calls you to trust as Gideon did, to believe that the God who used a small army to win a great battle will fight for you. Can you step forward in faith when the enemy seems too strong? Think of Nehemiah, standing before the ruins of Jerusalem's walls, facing opposition from every side. Fear could have stopped him, but he prayed, and God was his light, guiding the people to rebuild. God was his salvation, thwarting the plans of enemies. God was his stronghold, giving him courage to finish the work. Like David, Nehemiah's faith turned despair into restoration. What ruins stand before you today? A shattered dream, a broken relationship, a lost hope? Psalm 27 calls you to trust, as Nehemiah did, to believe that the God who rebuilt Jerusalem's walls will rebuild your life. Can you trust him to restore what seems lost? Think of Jeremiah, the weeping prophet, called to speak truth to a rebellious nation facing rejection and imprisonment. Fear could have silenced his voice, but God was his light, giving him words of hope. God was his salvation, sustaining him through persecution. God was his stronghold, protecting him in the midst of danger. Like David, Jeremiah's faith carried him through suffering. What rejection do you face today? Psalm 27 calls you to trust as Jeremiah did, to believe that the God who upheld him will uphold you. Can you speak truth and stand firm, even when the world turns against you? Loneliness can feel like a heavy fog creeping in when struggles overwhelm, when the world turns away. Friends misunderstand, loved ones fail to see our battles, and we feel abandoned, unseen. But Psalm 27 shatters this lie with a promise. Even if all forsake us, God remains faithful. David writes, "For my father and my mother have forsaken me, but the Lord will take me in." Imagine David in a desolate cave, Saul's soldiers closing in, his heart aching for companionship. Friends have betrayed him. His family is distant. His promised throne a faint hope. Yet, in that solitude, he holds fast. The Lord will take me in. This is no small promise. Even the deepest human love, that of a parent, pales beside God's unwavering devotion. Imagine David under the moonlight, the chill of the cave biting at his skin, yet his heart warmed by the truth of God's presence. He is not alone, for the Creator of the heavens stands with him. You may feel alone, your pain unseen, your battles fought in silence. But God sees every tear, knows every fear, carries every burden. You are not abandoned. The Creator of the stars stands beside you. The Lord of all walks with you. Each morning, Anchor your heart in this truth: I am never alone. Before doubt clouds your mind, let Psalm 27 speak faith. Before fear whispers that you're forgotten, let God's word declare you are His. No matter who turns away, no matter how solitary the road, the Lord will take me in, and that is enough. What would it mean to face each day with the certainty that the God of the universe calls you His own? What if you woke each day with the assurance that the God who never left David will never leave you? What if you faced every moment of loneliness with the truth that the Creator of all things holds you close? Psalm 27 is a lifeline for the lonely, a reminder that even in your darkest moments, you are seen, loved, and cherished by the one who will never forsake you. Can you trust Him to be your companion in every season? Each morning, the world demands our attention. Notifications buzz like restless bees, emails pile up, yesterday's worries slink back, and our minds race toward the day's burdens. But Psalm 27 calls us to pause, to reset our focus, to seek God's presence before all else. David writes, "One thing have I asked of the Lord, that will I seek after, that I may dwell in the house of the Lord all the days of my life, to gaze upon the beauty of the Lord, and to inquire in His temple." David's heart burned for one thing: not riches, not power, not an easier path, but to be with God, to bask in His presence, to behold His glory. What would your day become if this was your first pursuit? Instead of grasping for your phone, what if you reached for God's Word? Instead of drowning in news and distractions, what if you immersed yourself in truth? Seeking God first doesn't mean shirking duties. It means rooting yourself in Him before facing the world. It means trusting that no plan, no effort, no control can rival the wisdom and peace of His presence. When you begin your day seeking Him, the world shifts. Anxiety fades before assurance. Problems don't spark. Fear, they ignite faith. You don't chase fleeting treasures, you pursue the eternal one. Let this be your morning prayer. Lord, before I do anything, I seek you. Before I choose, I seek your wisdom. Before I step into the storm, I rest in your presence. When you seek God first, everything else aligns. Consider Joseph, sold into slavery, imprisoned unjustly, forgotten by those he helped. Yet he sought God's presence, and God lifted him from the dungeon to the palace, fulfilling His purpose. Like David, Joseph found strength in God, not circumstances. What distracts you from seeking God first? The rush of the day that sweeps you into its chaos? The weight of responsibilities that feels too heavy to bear? Psalm 27 calls you to make Him your priority, for in His presence you find clarity to face any challenge, peace to endure any storm. Imagine the difference if you began each day not with the noise of the world, but with the quiet assurance of God's voice. What could change if you sought His beauty before all else? The world urges self-reliance, demanding we push through trials with grit, stand tall in our own strength. But there are moments when our strength crumbles problems too vast, burdens too heavy, battles too fierce to fight alone. Psalm 27 redirects our trust from ourselves to the Lord, the true source of power. David declares, "The Lord is the stronghold of my life, of whom shall I be afraid?" A stronghold is a sanctuary, a refuge where no enemy can strike. David wasn't boasting in his own might. He faced lions, stood against Goliath with a sling, fled Saul's spears. Through every danger, he knew his strength came not from skill or cunning, but from God's presence. How often do we battle life's trials alone, exhausted, overwhelmed, carrying weights we were never meant to bear? Psalm 27 reminds us we don't have to. The God who upheld David upholds us. The God who strengthened him in the wilderness strengthens us in our weakness. When you rise, don't face the day leaning on yourself. Lean on God. Don't trust your own wisdom, trust His. Don't shoulder the world's burdens, place them in His hands. When the Lord is your stronghold, fear loses its grip. When He is your strength, you stand unshaken. When He is your source, you have all you need to face any storm. What could you accomplish if you faced each day with God's strength, not your own? Think of Paul, imprisoned, beaten, shipwrecked, yet proclaiming, "I can do all things through Christ who strengthens me." His strength was not his own, it was God's, the same God who fortified David. What burdens do you carry that God longs to lift? A failing health that drains your hope? A fractured dream that feels beyond repair? Psalm 27 assures you that the God who empowered Paul, who stood with David, is your strength, ready to carry you through. Consider Ezra, leading a remnant back to Jerusalem to rebuild the temple amidst opposition. Fear could have stopped him, but God's strength sustained him, and the temple rose again. Like David, Ezra trusted in God's power. Will you let the God who strengthened Ezra strengthen you in your trials? Think also of Joshua, leading Israel into the promised land facing fortified cities. Fear could have halted him, but he sought God's guidance, and victory followed. God was his light, showing the path. God was his salvation, conquering foes. God was his stronghold, giving him boldness. Like David, Joshua found strength in God's presence. What battles confront you today? Psalm 27 calls you to seek God as Joshua did. To trust His light will lead you to triumph. Can you advance with courage when the enemy stands tall? Think of Ruth, gleaning in the fields of Boaz, a stranger in a foreign land, her future uncertain. Fear could have driven her back to Moab, but she trusted God's plan, and He wove her into the story of redemption. God was her light, guiding her steps. God was her salvation, providing a kinsman redeemer. God was her stronghold, securing her future. Like David, Ruth found strength in God's faithfulness. What uncertainties test your trust today? Psalm 27 calls you to seek God as Ruth did, to believe His light will guide you through the unknown. Can you trust His provision when the path seems unclear? Every heart harbors a hunger no worldly thing can satisfy. People chase wealth, success, love, pleasure, hoping to fill the void within. but the emptiness lingers, a craving no earthly gain can quench. Psalm 27 unveils the answer. True fulfillment lies in God's presence. David writes, "One thing have I asked of the Lord, that will I seek after, that I may dwell in the house of the Lord all the days of my life, to gaze upon the beauty of the Lord." A warrior, a king, a man of triumphs, David longed for one thing above all, to be with God, to know Him, to rest in His glory. Not fleeting blessings, but the eternal presence of the Lord. Do you rise each day with this longing, or do you race into the world, crowding your heart with everything but God? You were created for His presence. There, peace blooms, joy is restored, your deepest needs are met. Dwelling in God's presence doesn't mean retreating to a monastery. It means living in communion with Him, seeking Him first, making Him your center. Each morning pray, "Lord, let me dwell in your presence. Let me see your beauty. Let me walk with you today." The world offers fleeting distractions, but only God offers lasting fulfillment. The more you seek Him, the more you discover He is the treasure your soul has always sought. Imagine the joy of living each day with your heart anchored in the one who satisfies every longing. What would it mean to wake each morning with a hunger for God's presence, above all else, to let His beauty fill the empty places of your soul? Life's storms spare no one. Trials crash in sudden loss, financial strain, shattered relationships, illness, or spiritual battles that grind us down. There are seasons when the waves seem unending, leaving us exposed, yearning for refuge. But Psalm 27 offers a promise. God is our shelter, our hiding place in the midst of trouble. David declares, "For He will hide me in His shelter in the day of trouble. He will conceal me under the cover of His tent. He will lift me high upon a rock." These words are not hollow. They are the testimony of a man who walked through fire and found God faithful. David fled for his life, hid in caves, faced enemies bent on his destruction. Yet he knew his true refuge was not in stone fortresses or armies, but in the presence of the Almighty. When life overwhelms, where do you turn? To distractions, to fleeting comforts, to your own faltering strength? Psalm 27 points to the only true shelter, God. He is your hiding place when anxiety surges, your refuge when fear strikes, your rock when the waves threaten to drag you under. But a shelter only guards those who enter. A stronghold only protects those who seek its safety. Each morning, step into God's covering. Rest in His Word. Cling to His promises. Abide in His presence. When trouble looms, don't stand exposed in the storm. Run to the one who offers safety. When fear attacks, don't fight alone. Let God shield you beneath His wings. In Him you are secure, protected, lifted high above the tempest. The world craves speed, quick fixes, instant answers, blessings on demand. But God's ways are higher, His timing flawless. Psalm 27 closes with a vital command. Wait for the Lord. Be strong and let your heart take courage. Wait for the Lord. Waiting is hard, often painful, when answers linger. We cry for healing, breakthrough, guidance, and sometimes God says, wait. The enemy whispers, "Has God forgotten you? Does he care?" But Psalm 27 assures us that waiting is not wasted. It is a season of growth, of deepening trust, of preparing for God's plan. David waited years between his anointing and his crown, fleeing Saul, enduring trials. Yet he learned God was working, even in the silence. Waiting on the Lord means trusting actively, praying through delays, choosing faith over frustration, worship over worry, patience over panic. If you're in a season of waiting, don't despair. Don't chase your own answers. Strengthen your heart in the Lord. Cling to His promises. Keep seeking, trusting, believing. Those who wait on the Lord will not be ashamed. In His perfect time, He will answer, move, fulfill every word. Victory comes not from our might, but from trusting God. David writes, "And now my head shall be lifted up above my enemies all around me, and I will offer in His tent sacrifices with shouts of joy." He speaks with certainty, knowing God has won before the battle begins. Life is a battlefield. Discouragement, temptation, fear, and pressures encircle us. But Psalm 27 declares that victory belongs to those who trust the Lord. If God is for us, who can stand against us? Worship before the breakthrough. Praise before the answer. Stand firm when the enemy shakes you. Your head will be lifted not by your strength, but by His. When victory comes, your heart will sing, knowing the Lord fought for you. Fear is a thief, but God's light drives it away. David declares, "The Lord is my light and my salvation, whom shall I fear?" In God's presence, darkness flees. The God who guided David guides you. Walk boldly, for fear has no hold when the Lord is your light. When we wonder if God hears, Psalm 27 assures us He does. David writes, "Hear, O Lord, when I cry aloud, be gracious to me and answer me." This is the cry of a man who knows God alone can save. God hears every whispered prayer, every desperate plea, every silent burden. He may not answer as we expect, but He is never deaf to our cries. Don't stop praying, seeking, knocking. The God who heard David hears you, working in ways unseen. His answer's always good. Even if all forsake you, God never will. David writes, "For my father and my mother have forsaken me, but the Lord will take me in." His love is steadfast, His presence eternal. You are never alone. Hope anchors the soul. David declares, "I believe that I shall look upon the goodness of the Lord in the land of the living." His hope rested not in people, wealth, or circumstances, but in God's character. No matter the trial, you can trust God's goodness is real, not a distant dream. Choose faith even before the breakthrough. You will see His goodness. Psalm 27 is more than words. It is a declaration of faith, an anchor for the soul. It calls you to begin each day with confidence in the Lord, to seek His presence, trust His protection, and know He never forsakes you. When fear creeps in, proclaim, The Lord is my light and my salvation. Whom shall I fear? When life overwhelms, rest in, he will hide me in his shelter. When you're tempted to give up, hold fast. I believe I shall see the goodness of the Lord. You are not alone, not forgotten, not without hope. The God who was faithful to David is faithful to you. Walk forward in faith, your victory, strength, and future secure in him. Wait on the Lord, trust his promises, and never stop seeking him. Think of Hannah again, her voice rising in prayer amid her tears, trusting God for a child. Despair could have silenced her, but God was her refuge, granting her Samuel and joy. Like David, Hannah's hope endured. What longings burden your soul today? Psalm 27 calls you to pray as Hannah did. To trust God's refuge will bring joy. Can you hold to hope when answers delay? Think of Gideon, standing with his small band of 300, watching the Midianite army spread across the valley like a plague. Fear could have driven him to flee, but he clung to God's promise, and the enemy fled in chaos. God was his light, illuminating the path to victory. God was his salvation, turning weakness into strength. God was his stronghold, securing the impossible. Like David, Gideon's trust brought triumph. What fears loom over you like an army today? Psalm 27 calls you to stand as Gideon did, to trust that the God who delivered Israel with a shout will deliver you. Can you believe in his power when the odds are against you? Think of Esther, standing at the threshold of the king's court, her heart pounding as she prepared to plead for her people. Fear could have turned her back, but she fasted and prayed, trusting God's deliverance. God was her light, guiding her words. God was her salvation, saving her people from destruction. God was her stronghold, giving her courage to act. Like David, Esther's faith brought victory in the face of death. What risks do you face that seem too? Psalm 27 calls you to trust as Esther did, to believe that the God who saved a nation through her will save you. Can you step forward in faith when the cost seems high?